I'm Lauri Flaquer of Soltar Solutions, and I'm here today on Focus Forward. I have an amazing guest, Regina Barr. She is an award-winning business owner and founder of Red Ladder and Women at the Top Network. Regina, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Lauri. It's always fun to be with you.
Thank you. So now we are going to talk about executive coaching, and I'd like to find out, what's the best way to go about executive coaching?
So you know me, Lauri, so I am all about having some process and a framework, if you will. So I like to tell people to look for a couple things, and I use the word PC, but I don't mean being politically correct. So the first thing is when you're shopping for an executive coach, I do think it's important to look at professional credentials, but I want to be clear here. I'm not necessarily saying that someone has to be certified, but if that's important to you, then make sure that they have coaching certification. But what I'm saying is make sure that they have the right credentials that meet the needs of what you're looking for. So for example, does this person have the business experience? Do they have the corporate experience? Have they started a small business? If you're a small business owner looking to get coached by a small business owner. If you're a corporate executive, have they walked the talk? Have they been in the corporate corridors? You know, so you want to look at things like that. You know, for me personally, when I decided I wanted to get into coaching, I was going for a master's program in human development. And so what I made sure that I did was to take as many executive coaching and team building courses as I could as part of that program. Because then I felt with the audience that I was targeting, it would be a win-win. I would have some of those credentials that are important for some people, and I would also have a degree that's important for other people. And then, of course, at the end of the day, it really comes down to experience. So that's the professional credentials, if you will.
So looking at it, why do you think it's so important for women to seek out coaching, especially executive women?
So my experience with most executive women, it's always fascinating to me, Lauri, because I know you work with a lot of women, and I never find that it's a competence issue. I always find that it's in some way, shape, or form, no matter what they call it, it's a confidence issue. And so I feel that sometimes women need a little more prodding, a little more pushing to move themselves forward. And I think that's where coaching can really help. And you know, we didn't talk about this, but something that's really critical to that coaching relationship is professional or personal chemistry, the chemistry piece, because we women, we tend to like to have a confidant, right? Someone who we can let our hair down with and talk very frankly with, and that is so important to an executive coaching relationship. So I just think that they need to have someone in their corner sort of helping them move themselves forward. Sometimes, not every woman, you know, so I'm generalizing here, but frequently that's what I find, it's a lack of confidence.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I work with women, as you mentioned, and it almost feels like they have to have done like an Olympic gold medal to even say that they're okay at something. I mean, they have had to excel to such an extent. I'm like, can't you just own the success? But they have a really hard time owning any success that they have. They'll deflect. They'll say, oh, you know, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was a team effort. It was this, it was that. And I think that that's very, very harmful for women professionally.
Right.
I think it costs them a lot of money and also self-esteem because they're not owning that. But I'll tell you, they can tell you every single failure they've ever had, no matter how minute. So having a coach, I think, is really important because a coach, you can sound it off with the coach. What do you think about this? The coach is like, no. Why don't you think about it like this, or here's how to present yourself in, you know, you present yourself up, but women tend to present themselves down. Have you noticed that?
Yes, they absolutely do. I call it the psychological one down. When they are working with people or talking or negotiating or doing anything like that, they don't even have to sit down at the table with someone because they've already psychologically done that to themselves. And so a lot of times when I'm talking with women, I tell them things like how to position themselves, the kinds of language and words that have power to use, and then a lot of times I will tell them to zip their lips because the mistake they make a lot is that they dilute down their message because they get nervous and they feel the need to talk. Now, some men do that as well, but I frequently see it with women, and part of that is we just tend to be more relational, more social. And again, I'm generalizing, but I see it so often with women. And sometimes it's a nervous reaction, right? When there's silence, we want to fill the silence. We want to make everyone feel comfortable. And the way we do that sometimes is we talk and we try to smooth things over. And that can be detrimental to us as well.
Well, I know that you are an expert in negotiation. And one of the things that I know very well about negotiation is the first person that speaks loses. So women often tend to, through that, that desire to just keep things moving, they whittle themselves down in their conversation. How do you stop that? How do you help them to see things in a different way?
Well, a lot of times we talk about it, so sometimes just naming the issue, and usually what I'll find is women will start to chuckle or giggle because they completely can see themselves doing it. And so then what I encourage them to do is start to just mentally note, or even take on a piece of paper, like start noting how many times they do that to themselves. So the first part is awareness. The second part is then we talk about how can we go about not doing it. And I'll be honest with you, I get nervous sometimes too, but I'm mindful of it. And if I'm negotiating over the phone, I will literally write on a sticky note, be quiet, or sometimes I'll write shut up, and I will put that out somewhere where I can see it, just as a reminder that get comfortable with the silence. The other thing is if I'm at a table and where somebody, I don't want to write down, be quiet on my notepad, but I will do something like either I'll have like a little token, I'll have my pen, or some people will put a rubber band, just something to remind you to be silent when necessary. And silence can be awkward. We are not a society that is comfortable with silence. So I also encourage people to practice in a safe environment when you're on the phone, when you're in the supermarket, and just kind of have fun with it, because it is really funny when you're silent, because you will start to get uncomfortable and so will someone else. But the key is let the other person talk first and get more comfortable with allowing them to do that.
That's awesome. So you just gave us 3 really important tips. So can you let's just like bookmark those tips. So tell us again what the 3 tips are that you would give to executive women so they are able to really get what they deserve and also be happier professionals.
Well, I think the very first one we talked about is find a coach and be okay with having a coach. Having a coach does not mean that there's anything wrong with you or that you're broken in any way. It means that you are serious about your success. Because quite frankly, what athlete, right? We just, had the Super Bowl. What athlete would not have a coach? I think the second one is be willing to negotiate on your own behalf. And part of that negotiation process is getting comfortable with being silent, getting comfortable with being successful and talking about your successes, and then learning how to either reframe failures, and I hate to use that word because really failures are learning opportunities. And then finally, I think just really focusing on your competence, because if you focus on what skills and things you bring to the table, your confidence will follow.
That's often very, very true. Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. This has been great. I've learned so much. I always learn so much from you, Regina.
Thank you, Lauri. I love being on the show with you.
Thank you. So this is Lauri Flaquer of Soltar Solutions with Regina Barr, and we were talking about executive coaching. This has been amazing. Thanks so much. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. We want to know what you're thinking. Bye-bye now.